To the best of my knowledge, I have never met Truott in my life. I don't recall meeting Truott in my life. Shelley Kane, or Sheri Kane, or whatever her name is, told me that I was in league with this guy, or in league with the individuals around this man, and that I was an agent, and I was working with those in the conspiracy movement to topple this great deal of work that has been done by many people for years. And I was told that I was conspiring with Truott to topple this damn movement. And Shelley Kane, or Sheri Kane, was working with Dr. Horowitz, who was at one time a fellow I considered to be a friend. I have since been sued by Sheri Kane and sued by Dr. Horowitz, accused of many crimes, one of which was taking us down the yellow brick road. Shelley Kane said that I was a self-hating Jew. And I always thought that I was Christian, but according to her, I was a self-hating Jew. And individuals got on the list of people to be sued, and it grew and grew and grew. Alex Jones was a suspect. Certainly Truott, even though I've never met him, was a suspect. And individuals in the conservative or patriotic world movement are suspects. Maybe Barbara Tavares has been one. She's a suspect. And all of these individuals are supposed to be the bad guys. And Shelley Kane and Horowitz are supposed to be the good guys. I was invited to spend some time in Hawaii with an individual who was conducting a meeting of exposers of the great conspiracy. And the lady who had invited me, was sort of built like Ollie Matson of the Rams. Big, thick, buxom, and very outgoing. I was asked to spend the night in their daughter's abode, which was at Hawaii, and the complex there in Hawaii, in Honolulu. And I started to begin to become sort of suspect. And as later time went on, I became greatly suspicious of the activities that were going on behind this one woman who took charge. In fact, one of the fellows of the meeting in Honolulu was a nice enough guy and was taking pictures of our meeting, and she accused him of being unauthorized to take these pictures. And the fellow was off and away when this woman jumped the fence and went after him and actually took him down. When I say took him down, I said she punched him out. And that sounded crazy that, she would intervene in that way, but she did. And
of the woman, the
yeah,
big woman. You told me the story once before, but I don't remember her name. Yeah. When you called me on the phone, I never met Anthony until just yesterday.
Oh, so this is your first visit?
And we've talked on the phone. He's called me when this whole lawsuit,
Right,
insanity, came up.
Okay.
But the first time I just knew him from his pictures, and I said said hi to you yesterday.
and I never
met
seen him or met him.
Nor have I ever met Sheri Kane. I don't know who she was either. But
Have you ever met her?
no,
No, you
don't
haven't.
ever want to either. Frankly, I don't think I'd want that.
She's something else. When she was up there on that panel the year before last, and Anthony was up there, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
She and Horowitz sitting up there.
I got the DVD sent to me.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and I was just like, holy mackerel.
I know.
But see, people are smart. They saw through it, didn't they?
Oh, yes.
They saw through the
Finally,
attack.
somebody
and
gave Brian a letter, and said, "Stop this. We didn't come here."
foul language
this.
and all
Oh,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was very obvious.
Yeah.
It was very obvious.
By your fruits you shall know them. So that's.
These days, litigation is not a fun thing to get tangled in, though. You still have to defend it.
Well, it's, the courts threw it out. So I mean, and my attorney just was amazed. It cost me money to defend,
Yes.
as it did probably Anthony too. But
Yes.
my attorney just says any judge that even would hold this for 1 minute is crazy. It's
There's a
absolutely.
lot of crazy judges. Though.
Yeah, but,
that's the problem.
Yeah,
It's so corrupt.
but it's another state. They can have jurisdiction over somebody else in another state.
I don't think so.
But that's not really the reason I wanted to talk, but I did want to talk to Truott to get this story clear.
Absolutely.
Good.
To sweep the dust from the pages. And clarify
This should be filmed right now.
It is.
the
You're still
things
rolling.
that were wrong. The one woman who invited me over to Hawaii, she was a talk show host. As I understand it, had been arrested by the feds and was working with various people associated with the movement. In fact, serving as a volunteer for Brian Hall, right here in the convention, the Con convention. And I told him that I didn't want to have any association with this woman. But she's been working with a B'nai B'rith or group in a multi-million-dollar facility out of Hawaii. And when I walked into a conference with Dr. Horowitz, I looked over there, and here was this woman who created the stuff. She would talk about Anthony Hitler, you know. And she seemed to have a direct communication, was in league with our conductor of activities at the conference, was Sheri Kane. And therein lies the problem. And certainly I took a look at the activities of the one woman, and she had been on the payroll of this Zionist cabal and orchestrating some of the activities behind the event. Anyhow, I needed to talk a bit about that. I'll give you her name later. I'm trying to forget her name right now at the moment. She tried to get her daughter to move out of her room, and I was willing certainly to do that. But as the evenings grew, I was asked to shower in her room, and I heard the door open. I guess it was the woman conducting the event. And you know, she came in, wanted to come in to use the shower. So she said, "Can I scrub your back?" And I said, "Well, that's all right. Go ahead." So she came in and took off her bra with these enormous, big, you know, jumping, I guess, double D or whatever the hell it was. But she was sort of gross. In my imagination or my view, extremely gross. And she was trying to put the make on me. And we went out for a ride along the beach. And she said, "Take off your clothes." I'm not into that kind of stuff, but it was a nude beach. She said, "Well," I said, "Not for me. It's not nude." And she took off her the top of her suit. We went out for a swim, and her breasts were floating along the top. And it was like these huge, big, cylindrical Pancock flotation devices, which grossed me out. And I was told, when I found out that the activities was being recorded in Hawaii, and done very well by her, with Jordan Maxwell being my co-host, in the day before I was to leave. I got a call, and they had asked me to come into a fellow who was conducting an anti-monetary scheme for the creation of currency, and it was good currency. I don't know, it was something Fed, but they had the whole operation. And this woman had worked for about nearly a year in the act for this guy, and I guess she was considered to be a friend of his, and she turned on him, and there was an investigation by the feds. They raided the house. She was involved in the activities, and she said, "Well, we've got you now." And the fellow was convinced that there was a coalition, a cooperation between the two, and she wound up in getting this guy sentenced to jail. And that's the organization that we're talking about, involving Sheri Kane, and Lynn Horowitz. She was working amongst them, closely aligned with them. Is it a Zionist type organization? Well, certainly this operation wasn't done by Americans. It was done by those in control of whatever activity these people wanted to do, and that was to knock off the right wing or the conservatives and patriots amongst us, and that would include you. Yes, Lou and you, and the entire group, and including Truott and company. And that's really about what I should say. I can get into the details later, but I want to talk to you about Truott. Is there amongst us individuals who've got the message, who are able and capable of convincing a majority of the people that this movement, the Patriot movement, is being infiltrated? I'm going to ask you, True, I have never met you before, and I was told by Sheri Kane that I was in league with you. I was in league with Ted Gunderson. I was in league with Ted Gunderson, a former head of the FBI in L.A., Dallas, and Memphis. And the conspiratorial network was expanded so that somehow we were involved in the same conspiracy. that we were involved in setting people up or doing some disastrous deed that would bring in the truants and the William or Brian Wilson Hall or Brian Hall into the play with this conspiracy. Now, this is a real conspiracy by real people, one of which is Shelley Kane and Horowitz, to strike dead this movement. I've known Lynn for a period of time, and I've been pushing what he has done, or at least until recently. So, a true. First of all, let me shake your hands. Thank you for doing what has not been said and what has not been done. I'm told that you gave a speech here at the Conspiracy Con, which would indicate that you have knowledge that those in power in the U.S. government had previous knowledge of the 9/11 event, that possibly the Zionees, that might be the reason that I was under attack, had knowledge of what preceded and led to the attack upon the World Trade Center by the Zion-Nazis, with the full cover and cooperation of the government of the United States. Where have I gone wrong here?
I have, for the record, never met Mr. Hilder until yesterday for the first time when we physically met. Because of these I classify them as pure crazy rantings, trying to link us together. I had the privilege of talking to you on the phone. You initiated the call, called me, and just got to know me a little bit. And I got to know you, and that's been a blessing, frankly. I had no idea you were doing all of the videos that you've done, and I was introduced to you by this, and I'm saying he's a hero. Well done documents, and I realize you've forgotten more about this movement than most people will ever know. And so I look at it as like a blessing that we got to know each other, and that's really why I'm here today, frankly. There was a vicious attack against me personally at the conspiracy conference 2 years ago. That I had friends from Utah that had traveled and were in attendance, and physically were so upset they called me on the phone. They know who I am, and they says, "You can't believe what's being said about you." And then they went to Brian and said, we know this guy. He's not this way. This is a personal attack that we don't feel like you should allow. And so, to his credit, Brian sent me a letter of explanation, apologizing. It was not his fault. He flat out can't guarantee what's going to be said. Of course he's not responsible or liable for it, but it was nice of him to let me know he was sorry and apologetic. And I developed a relationship with him over that, because he began to wonder, why are they doing this? Why are they attacking you? And I shared with them my thoughts of why possibly they would be doing that. You mentioned Ted Gunderson. In August of the year before the conspiracy conference, in August of 2009, I sponsored a friend of mine from Las Vegas named Dane Phillips sponsored a conference in Ogden, basically to get, he's on the learning curve with this thing. He was completely unaware of this cabal, the reasons and the things really behind September 11th. he heard me speak at another conference in 2009, and I gave him a lot of documentation that rocked his world. Okay, he said, as a Christian gentleman, wow, you shake my paradigm. So he had a writer friend named John Skura, who wrote screenplays and that for Hollywood. Used to be a writer for Merv Griffin, I understand, and it's quite well known. They were fraternity brothers in college. And Skura was, at the time, a complete and total skeptic of all of this craziness. He called it craziness, conspiracy theory, nutcases. But he said, Dane Phillips said, could we meet you and anybody that you think is a star that can explain the story? And I said, look, to me, the Achilles heel of this whole movement is the satanic ritual abuse going on against innocent children. And the best that I know of that can do this is John DeCamp's book on the Franklin cover-up. I know a friend of John DeCamp's and Ted Gunderson's named Doug Millar. Doug's been terribly busy, worn out his life, frankly, in exposing this story for over a decade that I know of. And so I said, look, if you want to hear from the horse's mouth, let's get Ted Gunderson, let's get John DeCamp, let's get others that Doug Millar might know. He does know a lot of people. Let's get them together for a conference in Ogden, Utah, and let's Skura ask him the tough questions on camera, just like we're doing right here, videotaped, audio taped, and if Gunderson's agreeable to it, we'll do it. So on his expense, his nickel, Dane Phillips brought all these people together, flew John DeCamp in, flew Ted Gunderson in, put him up at the hotel, much like Brian has done with me here in this conference. And it was a full day, and I'm here to tell you, Ted Gunderson opened his files like he's never opened them before. He was diagnosed with cancer. He knew he was feeling the mortality of that, and he put out things that I didn't know about who's really behind the finders, the whole group of the CIA, and I tell you, it was an eye-opener to John Skura. Out of that interview came the book called Battle Hymn, and you can go on and get the book, battlehymn.com. That's where that all came from. Skura used his writing skills and his investigative, and his questions were very poignant, interviewing not only DeCamp and myself and Ted Gunderson, but also victims, eyewitness victims suffering from multiple personality with repressed memories, but evidence. The evidence is overwhelming if you honestly look at it. So at that point, it was right at that conference that the attacks by Sheri Kane and a lady named Barbara Hartwell and whoever started really hammering Ted to discredit Ted from this body of information. And it was very upsetting to Ted. She hadn't been attacking me yet, but she was surely attacking and making all these character assassinations on Ted, saying he was COINTELPRO, misinformation, disinformation. And I said on record to Ted, why would you be opening these files that expose this whole thing if you're misinformation, if you're a part of it? The Michael Aquino connection to the military, the John Alexander connections. And Ted was staying at my house that evening, and I'll never forget. This was probably the last time he was really vocal before he went downhill fast with his cancer. And he's a tough guy. He's an American hero, a macho kind of guy. And Ted Gunderson broke down and cried. And he said, I couldn't stop it because of the power of this cabal, this group. And he says, and it's the Jewish contingent. I haven't been able to say that, but now I know I don't have a lot of time left. That's the secret. And so I said, well, it makes sense because of what I've researched too, and then comparing his notes. So at that point is when I started getting attacked. And, if we're not telling the truth on this, there's no reason for attack. You're talking about the innocent ones, the little children that are the victims here. And if you can't stand for them and fight for them, who can you fight for? And Gunderson had it right on. He says, "At all my time as bureau chief," he said, I'm just haunted by, these innocent ones being victimized. And that's why I do what I do. That's the pure of all motives. There was no reason for him to be a COINTELPRO agent with this. And so from those attacks became, okay, we know who the enemy is, who's trying to attack us, to lump us all into this for whatever, their credibility on these attacks have been lost completely, in my opinion. So when they attack you and attack me, Anthony, I think it's pretty good company, frankly. I think it's a compliment.
Actually, I'm not deeply concerned about the attack. We can identify those who are on the attack against the Christian conservative community, and those who are on the fence, neither Christian nor Muslim nor Jewish. Our alliance has resulted from an alliance of the truth. And I've got nothing against the Jews. I used to go with Dorothy Cohen. And there's so many of us in the movement, so to speak, who are willing to take a stand and fight in the war to get this information on the outside out. Ted and I, we're longtime friends. We're friends about 30 years. And he told me one story about an evening that he spent with an agent, a federal agent. And the third fellow in the room was a tall, thin guy that he identified as Osama bin Laden. So Ted was in the company of him. I was in the company of, I guess, an individual who would fit that bill. And I went out to a meeting of Eastern men who were very upset when I came out and attacked. They were very upset when I attacked Ronald Reagan in the Central Intelligence Agency. They were convinced that the CIA was on their side, and that Ronald Reagan was working against them, not for them. I was concerned about this lie being told. My friend, the Muslim, wanted to usher me out of the room where the individual Arabs, or I should say, alliance of individuals exposing the Soviet Union were talking. Anyhow, my friend got me out of the room, and so I wouldn't be injured. And whether it was Osama bin Laden or not, I don't know, and I may never know. But there's something going on between the CIA and the authorized facade that that Reagan and company and the CIA were anti-communist. That was not the case. The Soviets were funded by the CIA. The illusion, the whole thing was a hodgepodge, a slam, a scam, a flim-flam production. And these fellas had gone to war. And a lot of innocent men and women, sons and daughters and mothers and brothers, were sacrificed. Guys of fighting for one cause while the CIA was working for another. And that's when Ted Gunderson, I had met with Osama bin Laden. And Ted, I will assure you that Ted was never, ever on any side that was anti-American. And throughout, my friend, new friend, I have never been in your company before. Ever since that time, we have to start looking at the truth, who's really on what side. And I'll assure you that the people who are under attack of you and a fellow named Jones, Alex Jones, and Ted Gunderson, and yourself are on the what I call or we call in the movement the right side. They and you are against those who are against God in liberty, in justice, in humanity. We always have been. We always will be. So if you can tell us a bit about the 911 experience. I did the very first tape on 911 that was ever done. It was called, it was the film that preceded it was the film that preceded The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. And we had this thing up and out, and it was done with Ted Gunderson and myself and a few others that were the very first to expose the fact that this was an inside job. And we called for an investigation, and in so doing, we brought about the ire of the administration and administrations working under the Zion Nazi camp. I thought I would proceed with you, and I would like you to know that all you have been told about 911 being an inside job is a bunch of crap. It's been a sham. It's been a lie. And you're supposed to believe it. So let's get down to who actually did this, the greatest crime in the history of the United States of America. Who conducted the attack? Who was behind it? Who made money from it? Tell us throughout the story from your point of view.
Oh yeah, thanks, Anthony. Yeah, I was involved in a small way with, I don't know if you want to call it the truth movement or what, but from 1997 through about 2001, I did a radio show, live radio show, started out of KSUB Radio in Cedar City, Utah. It's called The Story Behind the Story. My good friend Warren Anderson and I basically did the content. One of our really good guests was a controversial gentleman named William Cooper, who wrote the book Behold a Pale Horse had come out, and he was always good for a good audience, a good interview, because of his verifiable claims of Navy, being ex-Navy intelligence and still having connections to people that loved the country. And we talked about, we had Ted Gunderson on the show at times, trying to figure out who was the good guys, who's the bad guys, who's who in the zoo is what we called it. Because it's hard to tell sometimes, with Hal Turner and that madness coming out too. But I remember well interviewing Cooper. I believe it was July or maybe early August of 2001, where he said to beware, there's going to be this major, and he called it a false flag operation coming down sometime in the first part of September.
Well, I did a review of Behold a Pale Horse, endorsed the book in print, and I loved my friend Bill, and he told me that they're coming to get me, they're coming to kill me, and he was...
I think it was because of what he said about September 11th. It was really, he had a lot of controversial things exposing, what's really happened with the UFO scam and all of this. But this is where he really, I think, crossed the line because of the things at risk here, the war being planned, the long-term thing, and he was definitely a loose end. And I personally think that's what precipitated it. When he first told me the story, and I just thought, well, we'll see. I had a wait-and-see attitude, because I really didn't believe it. My response on the morning of September 11th, watching it happen, was, OMG, oh my God, Cooper's right. He's exactly what he's saying, and that stunned me because then I said, well, if what he's saying is true, my next question was, will the American people believe the lie that comes out as to what caused it? Because obviously there's a big false flag lie coming out. And so immediately, within a few days, I did talk to Cooper again, and he said, look, if you really want to, so your best defense is to be a good offense. They don't want to make a martyr out of you to make your story believable. So he says, give me your phone number, and I'll have a gentleman call you that will tell you the real story behind it. And so I believe it was about a week, 10 days after September 11th. It was towards the end of September. My birthday's on September 28th. It was right around that time frame when I received the phone call from a gentleman who claimed to be one of the top 3 demolitions experts in the world. He was Russian/Finnish, operating out of Finland. He says, my life isn't worth a plug nickel if they find out who I am. So he would only initiate the call to me, would never give me a phone call to find out who he is. But he sent me a package of information that was the entire schematic that he said he prepared for the Port Authority for Silverstein, and because they were coming to him to see what it would take to demolish the Twin Towers and other buildings there for a renovation project. That was his testimony. And so, wow, I got the document, and it was clear that it was wired both with super thermite, but the core pillars, and he showed the placement of where it would have to be for specific neutron type, fission type of destruction bombs, what they call energy direct, what he called bunker busters. Okay, he says from a demolition expert to create the kinetic energy to destroy that building completely, you'd have, there's not enough thermite or any other explosive charge that would do it. It had to have the tactical nuclear bombs. Well, I got this and I thought, well, this is flat out huge Pulitzer Prize type of information. I took it to my friend Warren. We went to the press with this information and were immediately labeled terrorists ourselves, anti-Americans. We were worse than the Dixie Chicks back then. How dare you say this is not, that we're complicit? And it was very, oh man, the threats, the physical violence threat. I says, look, we need to debate this. Really, can you see the energy, the quotients here? Is there any other experts we can come out with? And of course, then Popular Mechanics came up with their piece showing how it's all pancaking from meltings and that swayed so much public opinion.
That was a complete and thorough fraud.
Absolutely.
A scam.
And then you've got the average American echoing George W. Don't let us never entertain wild conspiracy theories. And I would respond to that by saying, well, hello, the government story itself is a conspiracy theory. That somebody in a cave in Bora Bora conspired to come out and bring down the Twin Towers. Either way, it's a conspiracy theory. Which one do you want to believe more? The question is, how did a bin Laden get contact to shut down NORAD and to have them back off, and did all of the things that went on to make that a reality? It beggars the imagination from a logical standpoint that somebody with just armed with box cutters could have that much capabilities. That's just logical. So we went on the air, wanted to air this gentleman's testimony on KSUB Radio Live, and he was scheduled to call in. He called in. We started the show, and so I remember 10 or 15 minutes into it, the plug was pulled. The FCC, whatever, came in, and they just shut us down. And my show was canceled, and it was just, wow. If there's ever a proof that this information is right, that was it. And so I quietly said, well, here's the information that wants to have it. I got to still keep living, and I'm not popular right now. Truth is not popular. And my logo on my wall, if you ever visit my office, is the George Orwell quote, that in an age of universal deceit, telling the truth is what? A revolutionary act. And my name is True, and well, this is my story. It makes sense, it's logical. So the bigger question becomes, okay, if Cooper was right, if this finished demolition expert is right, if it was nukes, where did they come from? Where were they manufactured? You just don't go out and buy a bunker buster mini nuke on the open black market. It's one of the things that's not done.
Well, Ted had talked about a daisy bomb. And I felt there was some truth in that. I don't know how you describe a daisy bomb, but
I discussed this with Ted,
yes,
in depth, and he because I gave him the information because I trusted him. I did to go through his sources. I've never seen Ted turn pale. He turned pale with that information. His blood, his face. He says, "This makes so much sense. It scares me. I'll have to put it, and get back to you, but it looks plausible." And this was, as I remember, this was back in like 2005 when I gave him this information file, because it was a lot more than just the schematics. There was the the CD music tape that was found in the possession of one of two of the bombers or the hijackers, which was definitely a CIA program, absolutely a CIA program, and showing a gentleman pushing a demolition button to make it demolish. These are the type of evidence that I think he could have gotten a handle on. So I gave him the whole file, and that's one of the things he did finally tell me there in that meeting in 2009 was, "That's absolutely right," because it ties into this satanic ritual abuse network of missing children, because it's the same group of people. And so people ask me all the time, why do you focus on these? It's like this. When you pull open a rock and look at the slime underneath it and the slimy little bug, you start seeing the problem being, like, turn over the same rock and you see the same slime bug. You got to start thinking that slime bug needs to be exposed. It's the same groups.
Well, I was shot. As you never know when somebody's telling a history, whether he's telling the truth or not. But I was shot and in the hospital. And I was doing a radio show the next day. And when I was brought in, they said, "Well, you can't do the show." And I said, "Well, why not? I'm not here to end the show." And the fellow's saying, "Well, I said, listen, the doctor, Cedars Sinai, who was standing over me, was asked the question by yours truly. I said, what is the chance of my living through this without an operation or so? I said, just give it to me straight. Give it to me honest. And he's leaning over, and I said, just give it to me straight and honest. And he still didn't say. He says, just give me the facts. What are the odds? He said 1,000 to 1. I said 1,000 to 1? For or against? He said against. And it was then I made a decision to go through the operation. And the next day I was out of the emergency room, out of the hospital, and I did the show.
Hard to keep a good man down, then.
Well, my good friend Bill Cooper did a series of shows about me, and which moved my heart and my tears. I looked at Bill, who said that they were coming to get him. And they did one day. Yeah. And I talked to him right before he was killed, and I used to go with a black girl named Daphne, and he loved Daphne, and his daughter was named Pooh. He called her Pooh. There are those who fight for freedom, who speak up, speak out, and who dare to tell the truth. And Bill Cooper was one of them. I was at the funeral, and I put this act together as they buried Bill, who was shot about 8 times. In the on the front, and through the back. They killed Bill Cooper. They murdered Bill Cooper. They didn't allow him to live. They didn't allow him to tell the truth. And my friend the former head of the FBI was convinced that we were going to be under attack in a matter of days, and we were. Throughout, you've taken a stand and suffered some of the consequences. What do you suggest that we do other than what we have not done?
Just stay the course. That's all you can do. Again, as a Christian, and there's a difference between being a professed Christian and being, you are a Christian. That's how you know you are a Christian, is when these anti-Christian forces attack you, and powerfully so. So, I just say, bring it on. Bring it on.
Are we talking about the Zion-Nazi cabal that has, in fact, invaded our politics, who controls the CIA? I looked at a poster made by Barbara Tavares and Lou Tavares, who said that, well, I'm going to ask from the other side of the room.
William Casey,
Casey.
1981, said, "We will know when our disinformation campaign is complete," something to this effect, "when everything that the American people believe is false."
Now I would like Deborah Tavares to use the information that was given to us by the former head of the Central Intelligence Agency,